Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored. Today I'm going to be reviewing for you Horrified from Ravensburger Games, who did provide it to me. In this you'll be picking up items, helping bystanders to different locations, and hopefully take down the monsters that you're up against before the terror gets too much or you get taken out. I'm going to go over roughly how the game plays, and then I'll give you my pros and cons to let you know if you should be adding this one to your collection. So over the course of the game you're going to be taking hero actions, and then the board is effectively going to fight back during a monster phase. Each hero has 4 action points to spend on their turn to move to an adjacent space, guide a citizen that is nearby, pick up any number of items from the space that they are at, share items with other heroes who are in their location. They could try the advance action, which is effectively advancing along one of the monster's challenges. Once you've done that enough, you could then try to defeat them as an action, and then finally each character has their own special actions, which see you rolling a dice. As I alluded to, the game revolves around you moving around that board, collecting those items and then utilising them to advance those monster challenges. For example, if you're against the Beholder, you're going to be trying to gain those items and then get to its location and discard them to slowly but surely take out all of its 10 surrounding eyes. And then once that's done, you're going to be able to get to its location again, trade in more items to finally defeat it. However, the board is going to be fighting back. After the hero phase, you're going to go to the monster phase, and you're going to draw a card and see what happens. First of all, this will see a various number of items pulled from the bag and added to their sort of spawn locations randomly across the board. Sometimes right next to you, sometimes the other side of the map. Then an event is going to trigger. Sometimes this could be putting a citizen into a new space, or it could be something bad that the monsters are going to be doing. Then they will attack based on the things at the bottom of the card. You'll basically see the symbols of which monster's going to be moving, attacking, how far they're moving, and then how many dice they're going to be rolling. The monsters will try and take out the citizens that have spawned as well as the heroes, and fear not, if your character does die, it's not completely endgame, though the terror rating will be going up as a result. I mean, that makes sense. You don't really want to be killed very often. That would inspire some level of terror. And then on your subsequent turn, you'll be just sort of respawning up in the tavern. It's not just attacks though, depending on what you roll on those dice, there's like a POW exclamation mark symbol, and that could be potentially triggering the various monsters' special ability. And, well, they're never going to be good for the players. So you can see how you are collecting items, utilising them, trying to advance the challenges and taking out the monsters that are present. And then with the monsters fighting back, you can see how the game takes shape and the push and pull of, well, I really do need to get to that sort of place because it's got good items, but then the monster's all the way over there potentially killing a citizen and upping the sort of terror level that way. So you sort of get dragged around the map. There are 3 ways that the game can end, and, well, they don't all end in a positive way. If you do defeat all of the monsters, and normally you're going to be coming up against 2 of them, you could make it a little easier and only go up against 1, or throw more in if you really want to struggle. If you manage to defeat all the monsters, then the heroes win. And then there's the 2 less successful ways. If the terror track ever reaches the top, everyone is too terrified and you lose. The other way is running out of time. The monster deck that you're drawing cards from can run out, and if it does, you also lose the game. So that is how you played Horrified D&D, or Dungeons and Dragons. It's similar to the sort of standard Horrified games where you are coming up against monsters, but you're trying to sort of gain things on your turn to advance certain challenges, and each monster is obviously a bit unique. So that's probably a great place to touch because it's a great sort of point of the game, with a small caveat sort of negative. There are 4 monsters included in the box. There is the Red Dragon, the Mimic, the Displacer Beast, and the Beholder. And I think, to be honest, these are some really iconic D&D monsters that they've chosen. A Dragon and the Beholder, I think they're just classics. And then, yeah, the Displacer Beast and the Mimic, they also scream D&D. And each of them has their own challenge to them. And I mean that in both they are challenging at times, but also the thing you have to do. You have to advance the challenge to actually beat them. The Mimic, for instance, well, that's going to be starting off on its own sideboard, going round this track until the players have done a certain challenge, which is for all players to discard a sort of item of a specific colour when an event happens, and then it will sort of surface on the board, and oh, that's where the Mimic is. And I like how each of the monsters does drag you in a different way. And therefore the combinations of them is interesting as well. Like for instance, the very first game it suggests having the Beholder and the Displacer Beast. And well, that's not going to be an easy thing to come up against. And then all of a sudden you just swap one of them out. I really like including the Beholder all the time just because it's a Beholder. But maybe you swap out the Displacer Beast and have that red dragon or that Mimic, and well, the game feels a bit different because both of those aren't always on the board. You have to discover the red dragon's lair and things like that that just mean each game does feel different. As with anything like this though, the fact that those 4 do mean the gameplay stays a little fresher, it always leads to the question of, well, wouldn't it have been nice to have 5 or 6? And there's definitely some sort of even smaller monsters from D&D that they could maybe have included. Even if it was, say, like a small gang of kobolds that was actually really easy to take out, but was just one extra monster for you to have to sort of think and deal with. Then you could have sort of almost like a 2.5 monsters, so just edge the difficulty up a little bit rather than going from 2 to 3. Back to positives though, the core gameplay is satisfying and it does drag you in the different directions. Just when you were about to save that citizen, oh yeah, we kind of want those cool items over there. And yes, you'll get a perk card which you can use, which is always normally good. Yeah, I could just get you over the finish line and get you to the location that you're then safe in. But that item over there is really strong and could help us take down the Beholder. Choices. And that's what I like. Sometimes there are turns where this is really obvious, I've got these items. My turn is use my movement to charge at the Displacer Beast and advance, or maybe even try to strike the beast and sort of win, or maybe even just take one of the monsters out. Other turns there really is a bit of a pickle as you're sort of scratching your head going, there's a couple of good options and I'm not entirely sure which one is best. And I like it when games give you those puzzles, and it is cooperative, so you can talk as much as you like with your fellow teammates. And you might therefore also have the issue of someone going, you should do this, but don't let quarterbacking into it. Don't let alpha gamers take over. You make your own decision, just like you would in D&D. Theme-wise, they are obviously drawing from a fantastic, huge wealth of lore and everything to create these monsters, and I kind of like how they've done it. They have picked those iconic monsters and they have utilised that D20. For example, the characters have their own sort of little special action, and when you take that, you roll the dice. You don't necessarily know what you're going to do. As you would expect, rolling a 1 often has no effect, whereas rolling a 20 does something super. But even in the middle, there is variety. The Bard, for instance, if you roll 2 to 8, lets you move all citizens up to 2 locations towards you. But roll a little bit higher, 9 to 15, and all heroes will be moved towards you, not the citizens. So you might be trying to use that special action to do one specific thing, maybe move a hero or a citizen just a little bit further away from one of the monsters, and you roll something different. And I think that captures D&D because, like for instance, the Bard, a lot of it is about moving other things. What you're moving is sort of the result of the dice, a bit like if you were doing a check in D&D against a DM and sort of them letting you know what your spell or whatever has done. It's a loose representation, but they've captured sort of at least rolling a dice and something happening as a result of it. Production-wise, I think it's fairly good. I like the sort of illustration that sort of filled out the map. I like that all of the locations are sort of named and numbered, though interestingly, when you are taking items out of the bag, it just says the name of the location. And it sometimes, certainly in your first few games, you're like, oh yeah, where's this place again? It would have been really helpful. Those numbers are on the board to have included that on that sort of little reference of where the item's coming in once you've pulled it from the bag, just to speed that bit up. Moving past that though, the minis for the monsters are nice, but then it's odd that the characters aren't minis. They are standees, which have different colour bases to the standee citizens. Now, I'd understand to some extent if the citizens were standees, but it would have been that nice extra bit of flair if the characters, the heroes, had also been minis. But it is nice that the sort of big bads, the monsters that you're going up against, are minis. Another oddity is those monster sheets that sort of help you set them up, tell you how they sort of do things different, how you challenge them, how you actually manage to defeat them. It's just a bit odd sometimes if you're trying to read it from the side or not straight on. There's sort of a font that they've used on those is a little weird. Again, it's one of those things, your first couple of games, like with the items, not knowing where the spaces are when just by their name. After the first couple of games, not a problem, but it was a bit of an odd one, a little stumbling block in your first game. So overall, Horrified Dungeons and Dragons. This is one of those cooperative team sort of games where you are working together and you are dragged from one thing to another, but you are trying to do that overall goal of taking out the monsters before either the time runs out, that deck, or the terror just becomes too much. And that, like I say, drags you from one thing to another. That citizen is about to be taken out. The terror will be just pushed up too much. Can you save them on your turn? I like it that each character has those special abilities and it's got that sort of, the dice is in there. It's D&D themed. You need a D20. So it ticks a lot of the boxes. Of course, I have heard this sort of things from other people. They would have liked more than 4 monsters. And I could see a 5th monster, just adding that extra sort of middle step variety. So it's not just, we're beating it a couple of times at 2 monsters, stepping straight up to 3. That's a big jump. Or even stepping just down to 1 monster. That certainly makes it easier, and I like that there is that option, but a sort of middle step would have been nice. Having those monsters, those awesome iconic D&D monsters to go up against though, is really cool, and once you've managed to get those items and sort of do a bit of that advancing the challenge, finally slain one of the monsters, it feels achievable just before the other monster swipes you down. And you aren't going to win every single game of this, but I think that's a good thing. I think the monsters should feel threatening, and therefore it's a fun game, and you're going to want to go back and beat those monsters, and then once you've done it, change those monsters out, or just change one of them out, so you've got a different challenge there. But hopefully this has helped you know if Horrified Dungeons and Dragons would be a game for you and for your collection. Do let me know in the comment section below if you've played any of the Horrified games. What do you think of the series? Let me know in the comment section below. While you're going down, like, subscribe, hype, all that sort of jazz, and have a, well, not dragon or dungeon filled good day.